Stanley Kubrick only made 13 movies over nearly 5 decades, but most of them are considered classics. You've got The Shining, A Space Odyssey, A Clockwork Orange, but Kubrick's favorite genre overall was probably war. He made 6 movies that are essentially war films, although some mix it up with other styles. Ranking them is tough because honestly 5 out of the 6 are great films, but there's also a clear pick for bottom place. Most people would agree it's Kubrick's weakest war movie, if they're even aware that it exists. Kubrick's first ever feature film, and honestly, it's easily his weakest. This movie is super low budget, made for only $39,000, and Kubrick basically did everything himself. Lighting, shooting, editing, all of it. It's about a handful of soldiers trapped behind enemy lines trying to make it back safely, and things get complicated when they encounter a local woman. Interestingly, it's not set during any specific war, just some abstract conflict, which was a unique idea. Kubrick himself absolutely hated this movie. He later called it a bumbling amateur film exercise, tried removing it from circulation completely, and even bought back prints whenever he could. For years, it was thought lost, just bootlegs floating around collectors. But in 2012, the Library of Congress restored it, completely against Kubrick's explicit wishes, by the way. Not a great film by any stretch, but interesting if you're curious about how Kubrick got started. Here's where things get hard, because honestly, Spartacus is genuinely great, yet somehow it's second to last here. Sorry, Spartacus. Kirk Douglas stars as a slave who leads a rebellion against Rome, this massive epic war story full of gladiator battles and huge army confrontations. Douglas himself produced it and famously hired Dalton Trumbo, who was blacklisted at the time as screenwriter, basically ending Hollywood's blacklist by insisting Trumbo got full credit publicly. Kubrick wasn't even the original director. He replaced Anthony Mann after the first week, so Kubrick didn't have total control. Couldn't shape it completely his way. Later he kind of distanced himself from it, saying it felt too sentimental, too Hollywood moralizing. Still, huge movie, 10,000 extras, budget of about $12 million, giant battle scenes, and it was a massive hit, grossing around $60 million back then. Peter Ustinov even won an Oscar for supporting actor. Just not super Kubrick-y, if that makes sense. Barry Lyndon. This is what happens when Kubrick does have full control over a giant historical epic. It's a 3-hour odyssey based in 18th century England, and it's about a guy named Barry, basically an Irish rogue, who spends the entire film scheming his way into high society, only to see it all slowly collapse. It's told in 2 distinct halves, his rise, then his fall. Kubrick went completely obsessive here. He shot the whole thing with natural and candlelight only. No artificial lights at all, even using NASA lenses specially modified for low-light shooting. The costumes were all historically accurate. He even used real vintage clothing. The climactic duel scene took 42 takes alone. Critics at the time weren't impressed. They called it beautiful but boring, and audiences stayed away. It only made about $20 million on a $12 million budget. Nearly tanked Kubrick's career in America. It wasn't until the 2000s that critics started calling it a masterpiece. Directors like Martin Scorsese and Ridley Scott even say it's one of the most visually perfect films ever made. Kubrick's final war film, and one of his best. It's basically 2 completely different films smashed together. First half is boot camp, second half jumps straight to combat in Vietnam. At first it feels weird and jarring, but actually it works perfectly. Both halves explore the same thing, how war destroys a soldier's humanity, starting way before they even get to the battlefield. Kubrick actually shot the whole thing in the UK. He never even went to Vietnam. Every location is recreated from photos and newsreel footage. The sniper scene at the end alone took over 3 weeks and 30 setups to film. When it came out, reviews were mixed at first, but now it's a stone-cold classic. It made around $120 million worldwide off a $17 million budget too. Pretty impressive. Honestly, only Apocalypse Now might be more psychologically devastating than this one. Probably the weirdest war movie ever made, and easily Kubrick's funniest. Originally, he tried making it as a serious thriller. It's based on a completely straight novel called Red Alert, but he quickly realized the idea of accidental nuclear war was just way too absurd. So he turned it into a black comedy satire instead, hired writer Terry Southern to punch it up, and cast Peter Sellers in multiple roles. Originally 4, but Sellers got injured, so it became 3. George C. Scott plays a super intense general. Scott hated Kubrick tricking him into doing exaggerated rehearsal takes, then actually using those takes in the final film. Some politicians hated it. General Curtis LeMay reportedly said it was communist propaganda, and there was debate in Congress about how close the film came to reality. Columbia Pictures made Kubrick cast Sellers, or they'd cut funding, and the film ultimately made a solid profit. It cost $1.8 million and made over $9 million domestically. While Hollywood was turning out pro-war movies that almost felt like propaganda films from the Pentagon, Kubrick chose to make an anti-war film with Paths of Glory. This is Kubrick's first genuinely great movie. He was only 28 years old. Set during World War I, it's about 3 French soldiers made into scapegoats after a botched offensive and the court-martial trial that follows. It's incredibly direct, totally devastating, and powerful even today. When it came out, France banned it immediately, didn't allow it until 1975. They thought it portrayed their military as corrupt and brutal. Switzerland and Spain banned it too. It made a modest profit, about $5 million, but the critical acclaim was huge, praised especially for its moral clarity and impact. Kirk Douglas starred again here, and he fought the studio to keep the ending exactly as Kubrick intended, including this incredible scene in a tavern at the end where a captured German girl sings to a room full of broken, shell-shocked soldiers. It's Spielberg's favorite scene, by the way. Kubrick called this his most sincere film, and Douglas once said he made it knowing it wouldn't be a big hit, but because some things have to be said. There's a picture that will always be good years from now, he said. I don't have to wait 50 years to know that. I know it now. Even almost 70 years later, it still hits incredibly hard, still completely gut-wrenching, and probably always will be.